Welcome to the second part of this Heartstone arena run, where we will finally get to the conclusion of this entire run. So this mulligan is alright, I agree with this. This deck has a lot of early game, so I often want to throw away the mid game and late game cards, obviously.
Greetings.
And I have nice manners. I greet my opponent. So much noise outside right now. I hope it won't interrupt this recording. So this guy sure does take his sweet time. I wonder why I didn't coin out the armor smith. I think it's a fine play to play on turn 1 with the coin, but for some reason I didn't. But I'm sure I had my reasons. So once again, this guy is thinking really hard about what he wants to do on his really early turns. Okay, so he sends his 2-1 charge at me. I don't think it's a great play in arena run. Much better in constructed if you have a deck that's quick enough to finish your opponent, but you just can't get this type of deck in a arena draft. So yeah, I have nice curve. Turn 3, turn 4. I can coin stuff out earlier if I need to, and the armor smith trades well with whatever he has on the board. Raging Worgen. So I can't really remember what I decided to do against this guy. Yeah, but yeah, I think winning out the Death Bite is a good idea. Just flat out get rid of it. You don't want Raging Worgen to get enraged, because then he can deal a crap ton of damage. A small misplay I noticed here, like if I swing for the Worgen first and then use the armor smith to remove the 2-1 charge, then I'm left with 1 armor more and 1 health lower, which is usually better, especially since I have a shield slam in this deck. So he removes my armor smith, but I gain 2 armor while he does that, so that's fine. This is a hard turn, I guess, and yeah, I think I chose to remove it. Which is not a very good use of the Death Bite, but I didn't have any other plays to play, so it's fine. Obviously you can just remove this loot hoarder with his hero power, but that's okay because that might hinder his planned play. But I don't see any good turn 5s here. Maybe Demolisher and power up, armor up. So yeah, I think the right idea here is to get rid of this Yeti. And I can also play the Demolisher. Yeah, this is a pretty good answer, I think. Again, I probably should have traded the loot hoarder first and see what I draw, but whatever. I think, but it's actually the small differences that make a decent player and a good player. That's what makes a 5-win arena run into a 9-10 win arena run. Because in Hearthstone so often it comes down to the wire, like both of you are left on really low HP and this top deck wins the game. Silly druid destroying my fiery war axe. He doesn't have any idea how many more weapons I have. So this turn, what do I play? Also a pretty hard turn. No obvious plays here. I drop down the Argent Commander and trade into the Yeti. I think that's okay. Possibly could have saved the Demolisher, but then I couldn't play anything good with the remaining mana, so I agree with this. Yeah.
What to do? You love my new recipe.
Second Yeti comes into play. The obvious trade here. That's pretty value. Argent. That's already a 2-for-1.
What now? For the warship does not scare me.
So yeah, I guess the plan here is to trade into the Yeti, and then he's forced to sacrifice his Yeti to my Deathlord. But I'm not sure if that's a great idea. If he has any answer for this Deathlord, then fine. If he silences it, that's still okay, because then you won't get the... I mean, the Deathlord's Death Rattle is pretty beneficial to the opponent most of the time. Sometimes it can actually screw him up if it gets a minion that has a nice battle cry and he misses it. And I think that's a pretty value Deathlord. I mean, took a Starfire and he only drew Acolyte of Pain, so that's okay. And I think I have an obvious answer to this minion, which is the Death Spite. So far in this game I didn't really have any dominating board control. Oh, by the way, my friend told me when I say board control, he says it sounds like burst control. So, for anyone wondering, I am talking about the board control. Yeah, my accent's pretty bad. Working on it.
What we do.
Abomination. Well, that's a pretty good trade-off with my axe, and it won't kill my... Oh wait, yes it will. It kills my 2-3 because the Death Rattle from the axe deals 1 and the Abomination deals 2. So I'm not quite sure what is the good idea here. Executing the turtle, not sure if that's a great idea. I mean, yeah, it has a pretty high health, but yeah, I didn't decide to eventually, it seems. And I think it was the good call, the right play. I mean, he's a druid, he probably has something bigger. He has to, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. And executing this 8-8 is so much better, obviously, so much more value. And I can copy it first. So yeah, that's definitely the play. I think it's pretty obvious.
Try this.
After this turn, I guess I should probably start armoring up every turn. A little bit of threatening the opponent. This strategy to put fear in his heart, and then he will simply concede. I'm just joking, obviously. I think the emotes on the heroes are pretty funny. Like, when used in the correct time, they can be pretty funny. So, pretty easy trades here, I guess. Especially since I have the Urgent Ring Farce here to heal back up. And even when I have an 8-8 on the board, I will still trade down, because board control is king in Arena. And at this point, the game is almost locked down. He's going to have a pretty hard time getting through this stomp wall. And yeah, after thinking about it for a bit, he decides to give up. So, next match. Doing fine so far.
I will fight with honor.
Against a paladin. So yeah, I should probably throw away the X and the X, and I did. And get a pretty nice opening hand. It is actually possible to play the loot on turn 2, because paladin doesn't have 1 damage, ways to deal 1 damage. And he's going to coin out the raptor. So I'm thinking loot hoarder is a pretty good answer to that. I don't know why I even looked at the shield slam. Obviously I don't have any armor yet, but fine.
Reporting for duty.
This was actually filmed a couple of days ago, so I don't really remember what was going through my head while playing.
Hey, give me that!
So yeah, Haunted Creeper is a pretty good play against Paladin, because it can get rid of potentially 4 1/1s, which is great value. And as always, Fiery War Axe gets the value. Lots of value in this matchup. And look at this hand, so full of removal. So I decided to shield slam this demolisher to avoid damage to the face, and I have no idea why I chose to attack with the fire war axe. I remember this part actually. It was just muscle memory, like just silly habit, I guess.
Try this.
So yeah, at this point I decided to play the weaponsmith just to get a weapon and something to play. It can trade with the tiger along with the weapon. And even better if it decides to keep the tiger stealthed, then I can cleave it for pretty good value.
Let me.
And later on trade with my weaponsmith. He decides to attack. I take
The gates are open.
10 damage from the tiger, but pretty value way to remove it. So this executes in my hand, looking pretty good right now, especially since it trades. So thinking about it, I would probably double execute this board, just get rid of it. Yeah, and I did. I definitely agree with this. Sorry about that. So I had some pretty good trades this game. He gets a nice Kodo there, but that's still fine. The answers are there. So here, yeah, testing for secrets. That's a pretty good idea by him to play get down when I have this board. And these three can trade pretty well with Kodo, but I didn't. I just decided to freeze it, ignore it, and deal with it later on. I guess at this point it's fine to use the axe because Death Bite is going to be coming up soon. Yeah, consecration. I should have probably traded with the Kodo, then I get so much more value. But still, this is fine. So finally I decide to start just swinging to his face, since I have this Death Bite just sitting in my hand, doing nothing. And that's not very value. So this board he has right now, pretty bad for me. I guess I just cleave and hope for the best. The best result would probably be... oh wait, yeah, I cleave and hope for the best, and I do get the best. At this point, yeah, I decide to waste the axe away, because Death Bite is coming up soon, and he can remove his Fofo very efficiently. but it seems like he has the hand advantage.
Not a morning person.
Not on my watch.
So look at this board. Few obvious traits.
Where shall I strike?
I don't think I should whirl in here. There's still value to be made from this, for one. None of his minions are really big, none of them is a big threat, and I have quite a lot of armor, so it's fine.
I'm not ready.
So here it decides to freeze me, and things are looking pretty bad for me. So obviously I can copy off the Ogre Magi and do a whirlwind for 2, but that doesn't get me anywhere, really. So I guess, yeah, that was the best idea, to just copy the biggest guy on the board. Perhaps get some trades if this paladin decides he's keeping my ice elemental alive.
Squire, attend me.
Ready, sir.
So once again, things are looking pretty bad for me. I need a pretty monstrous top deck,
Armor made to fit.
and that's not what I'm looking for, but I will play it. Oh wait, yeah, this is nice. The dash rattle on the weapon, and the whirlwind together are a pretty efficient board wipe, board clear. And the armor smith also enables me to get few armor off of this trade, which is always nice.
Reporting for
So I guess this top deck was fine. It's so easy to miss those little things.
Strike.
So yeah, the decision here was just get rid of his threats. I had nothing to slam for the card draw,
reporting for duty.
so the best idea was just removal. And if I get something good, maybe I can catch back on. And the axe is actually a pretty good draw. It enables me to easily trade off into 2 minions. So it's somewhat 2 for 1, but I still take some damage to the face. Holy light.
Reporting for duty.
I usually don't agree with cards that are just plain healing. like Healing Touch for Druid or Holy Light for Paladin. They don't have any utility other than healing, and health is not a big deal in this game. As Trump says, your health is a resource, and you should use it so.
Get behind me.
Reporting for duty.
Okay. His board is getting pretty scary again. This is like some kind of a twisted version of Onyxia. He decides to trade into my 3-3, which is... I'm not sure if it's good or bad for me. At this point, yeah, I guess I use Death Bite to remove this minion. It's not going to get any better than this. I'm still at a decent health total, life total.
Bring out your dead.
Reporting for duty.
Okay, that's a pretty good draw. And if I'm going to use the axe, I obviously need to use it before playing the Kalkran Elite.
What now?
But I can't really remember what I chose to do here. Right now I think I would use the axe and remove his board and then play the Kalkran Elite. Let him deal with that. He played a few Hammers of Wrath already, so he probably doesn't have a way to remove this easily. But yeah, I decide otherwise. Man, this game is so slow. So slow. So here I play the Argent Commander, I guess. Not many options. And just keep the weapon, keep holding the weapon. It can potentially trade off with a lot of his 1/1s. And this late in the game is going to be using his 0 power almost every turn. Another Hammer of Wrath coming down. This guy sure drafted a lot of Hammers of Wrath. And True Silver Champion. That's bad for me. But as it seems, I have more cards in my deck, which is always good when the match is looking like it's going to get into Fatigue Wars.
We must cleanse the Sunwell.
So here, yeah, I would definitely play the Shattered Sun, even though it doesn't have anything to buff. If it can bait out a swing from his sword, then it's fine. Actually, it baits out a Consecration, and late in the game, I don't think that's a mighty good idea to use it on just one minion. He really needs to exhaust. If he could exhaust me before losing all of his cards, then I would be in serious trouble. So, since I will have no answer to his 1/1s. So I think this guy's play pretty much saves me this game. Not necessarily a misplay, but rather a poor decision.
For Najatar.
I've got the beast in my sights.
Okay, so at this point he played almost everything he's got. Just 2 cards left in his hand, and I can remove his stuff efficiently, pretty efficiently. Oh, and Cleave, that's a pretty good draw. So yeah, at this point I decide to trade off into the 1-1 because that makes sure I hit the two right targets, and now if he wants to trade into my 3-1, I get a pretty good value, and he's pretty much forced to, like, he has only 2 cards in hand. He can't really remove this efficiently, but somehow he finds a way, which is still okay because I have this axe and I have a few cards to draw still. And he is starting to take this fatigue damage, which will only keep rising every turn.
I will crush you.
Well played.
And yeah, I guess that's the game. There's no coming back from this. GG.
Victory or death.
So next match against Warlock. Once again I have a pretty good opening hand. This deck always good with the early game, but kind of struggling in the late game. It lacks card draw, definitely. I always seem to run out of steam in the late game. Fairy Dragon, a mighty fine target for the axe. And a pretty laggy moment there. So this is pretty nice. I can probably play on curve. I have a turn 3, turn 4. So this is an interesting situation because oh, never mind. Sorry. I was thinking something completely different. Death Lord is a good play. It's a really strong taunt, like 2-8 for just 2. I mean 3. He's really strong, and his downside is not always so negative. Like sometimes you can really mess up your opponent's play by making him play a minion when he didn't plan to. So far so good. I have the board control.
What we do.
So yeah, definitely axe the abomination. This keeps both my minions alive and gets me some high value. So that lord got a pretty high value. I mean, it traded it off into a couple of minions. It took in Siphon Soul, and at this point I would feel pretty good about all these trades. I've gotten high value from all of them.
Pass me that arc light spanner. Hey, give me
This is also a pretty value play. I get to draw 2 cards, I get to trade off pretty favorably for me, and I keep the axe. So this Ventrico, kind of scary, but it's no match for my execute. Warrior has so much removal, so much answers. I really like this hero. And I also think he's one of the best ones to draft arena with, other than mage and maybe hunter. Not so much after the
I am the blade of the
buzzard nerf. Takes away a lot of his utility. So I think this turn is obvious, trade off into the priestess, buff up the haunted creeper,
cleanse the sun well.
and just armor up. So I have a pretty good board presence.
Your magic shall not
I'm
save.
doing fine. But this Shell Flame really wrecks my face at this point. That's pretty good value for him. And all of these heroic strikes aren't so helpful. Also the cleave. Unless the enemy has at least 2 minions, you can't even play it. This is a pretty funny hand actually.
Engaging TC-130 mental dislocation.
Oh, and he had mind control tech. So good thing I didn't have any. I didn't have more than 3 minions at a time. So I guess I'm considering doing a double cleave, which is a pretty weird play. But no, I decided to trade off with the axe. And at this point I think the heroic strikes are just going to sit in my hand and do nothing.
From the void I come.
And yeah, this turn really swings the game into his direction. This is bad for me. And getting out of this one will require a pretty lucky top deck, which I didn't really get. So yeah, heroic strike into this 3-4, remove it, but this spawns the 6-6, which is fine I guess because I have the execute. But he's got very good value from this, and I just can't seem to keep up with this Warlock. Warlock has such good tempo, we can always, if he doesn't have the answer he needs right now, he can always just tap and look for it. And at this point I'm pretty much boned. Like, I don't even think there's anything in my deck that can save me. This deck doesn't have any AoEs. And yeah, this is over. GG, well played. Good try. Oh wait, I just had to use the coin, yeah. So, this was the arena run, ended up 3 wins, 3 losses. It went okay, I guess. Nothing too bad. And all there's left to show is what I got. Rewards. So just some gold and one pack. Let's skip to opening it. And I get some decent cards. So all in all, decent arena run. Thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you again next time and hope you had fun. See ya.